Diocese of Burlington. The faith was first planted here by French missionary priests. It came of age under the leadership of its first bishop and is thriving today under the guidance of its current apostle, Bishop Christopher Coyne.
I see myself first and foremost as the missionary. You have to be fully in the water and all wet. You can't be just a little wet when it comes to the zeal for the mission.
This is the story of the bishops of America, the shepherds of the past and the shepherds of today, who through their callings and ministry carry the church into the future. It's also the story of their parish, their church, the cathedral. This is The Chair, an exploration of what it means to be an apostle in America. In the Green Mountain State, situated on the eastern shore of Lake Champlain, is the city of Burlington, sea city of the Diocese of Burlington.
In the early 17th century, the French explorer Samuel Champlain had engaged the Jesuits to come into the area of what is now Vermont to work with the Native American communities there. Among the Jesuit missionaries was St. Isaac Jogues, who had spent a great deal of time going back and forth between New York and Quebec in his missionary work.
For some 12,000 years, indigenous peoples inhabited this area. Algonquin-speaking tribes were active in the area at the time of the first European encounter. The first missionaries to work in Vermont came in order to share the gospel with these native peoples.
The Catholic presence in the region, though, dates all the way back to the period of French exploration and settlement. And the Diocese of Burlington has long-standing cultural and historic ties with the Church in French Canada and the Diocese of Quebec. One of the spiritual treasures of the Diocese of Burlington is the Shrine of St. Anne, located on the eastern shores of Lake Champlain. The site commemorates the location where the first Mass in Vermont was said in 1666. The property had been acquired by Bishop Goesbriand in 1892 and was turned over to the care of the Edmundite Fathers in the early 20th century. During the summer months in particular, the shrine became a popular destination. Many arrived by ferry, and during the summer months, the shrine would have outdoor open-air masses to accommodate the large number of pilgrims who flocked to the site.
When the Diocese of Baltimore, which is the first diocese in the United States, was created, Vermont, of course, was part of that diocese because it encompassed all of the United States. In 1808, when the Diocese of Boston is separated from Baltimore, Vermont then becomes part of that diocese. But the Archbishop of Quebec is still caring for the needs of French Catholics in that part of the Boston Diocese. Later, as English-speaking Catholics begin to move into Vermont in greater numbers, that will create tension between the different ethnic groups.
Father O'Callaghan is sent into Vermont by Bishop Fenwick of Boston, and he serves in Vermont from 1830 until 1847. He single-handedly covers a mission field of over 100 miles, from the shores of Lake Champlain to the Connecticut River. In 1837, Father John Daly was sent to Vermont, and he really covers the southern part of the state, traveling tirelessly from place to place wherever there were Catholics. Now, thanks in large part to their efforts, by 1853, there were enough Catholics in the region for a new diocese to be established, the Diocese of Burlington.
Louis de Goesbriand is appointed first bishop of the Diocese of Burlington, and he immediately gets down to work. He goes back to his native France to recruit priests because when he comes to the diocese, he discovers only 5 priests, 10 churches, and 20,000 Catholics that need ministering to. In addition to his work as a pastor, essentially, for the state of Vermont, he also finds time to write and research. So he is not only a bishop, but a scholar and someone who cares very deeply for this new community that he has been asked to lead by taking his own money in many ways and building the infrastructure of the Diocese of Burlington.
Bishop de Goesbriand became known as the pious and learned Bishop of Burlington. The current bishop of the diocese, Bishop Coyne, is in the initial stages of presenting his predecessor's case for sainthood.
This was a man who fled post-revolutionary France, came out of an upper middle class family, had some personal wealth, came here to be the bishop with no connection whatsoever to the United States, was French-speaking, did not speak English at the beginning. And by the time he left, there were 40 or 50 churches in the diocese, maybe just the same number of priests. You think about that. This is somebody who accomplished so much. He was a normal guy. This man did more to establish the Catholic community in Vermont than anybody. He did so tirelessly, and if there's anybody who's deserving of the title of sainthood, I think it's at least from this state, it's he.
The second bishop of the diocese, John Michaud, was a native of Burlington, and he served the diocese between 1892 and 1908. In order to support the growing diocese, he invited several religious orders to come and work, including the Sisters of St. Joseph, the Sisters of Charity of Providence, and the Edmundite Fathers, who established St. Michael's College.
In 1904, St. Michael's College in Winooski, Vermont, is founded by the Society of St. Edmund, or the Edmundite Fathers. The Edmundites are very proud of their legacy of social justice. And one great example of that is Father Maurice Ouellette, a native of St. Albans, Vermont, who pastored a Black Catholic church in Selma during the voting rights struggle in that city. And he later marched with Martin Luther King and others to advocate for civil rights in this country.
In the mid-20th century, Bishop Robert Francis Joyce led the people of Vermont through the post-Vatican II years. Joyce attends the council, and he serves as bishop for 15 years, from 1957 until 1971. In 1972, tragedy struck the diocese when the cathedral was destroyed by arson. The original cathedral of the Diocese of Burlington was Immaculate Conception Cathedral. Begun in 1862 and completed in 1867, for over 100 years, the church served as the diocesan cathedral.
A new church was built after the arson and stood until 2001 as the cathedral. Afterwards, St. Joseph's was named the co-cathedral of the diocese.
Beloved to the French-speaking people of the Lake Champlain area, the Cathedral of St. Joseph in Burlington, Vermont, is actually the oldest national French-speaking church in New England.
An interesting point about the Diocese of Burlington is historically there's been a wide break between the French-speaking community and the English-speaking community, and it's pretty much north and south, north being closely connected with French Canada, and the south being connected more with Boston and New York. And it still perdures down to today, even with some of these parishes and churches that are built like within a couple of blocks of each other that are still there and still being used. One is a French church, one's the Irish church, or one's the English-speaking church. And the same is true of this cathedral, because this was the French church. In Immaculate Conception, the former cathedral was the Irish church. We didn't need two co-cathedrals within half a mile of each other. So it was a matter of just the larger church at the end of the day won out.
Founded in 1850, the parish of St. Joseph's is intimately connected to the story of French Catholicism in Vermont. But today, as the cathedral and mother church of the diocese, it serves as the spiritual home and center of liturgical prayer for all of Burlington's Catholics.
The cathedral has been through many restorations and renovations. The most recent has created a beautiful white interior.
I think one of the greatest things that they did here was to leave the frosted windows and not put stained glass in. because this church during the day is just filled with light. You can see the echoes of the architecture of the time, the fact that churches were designed in such a way that the windows were above the normal height of a person so that people wouldn't be distracted by looking outside. So the windows are always higher than eyesight because this building's just filled with such light. It's beautiful, beautiful. This soaring arch is just glorious. For me, I think the general architecture of it is just spectacular.
As you enter the main aisle, your eyes are immediately drawn to the main decoration of the entire church, which is a recreation of Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper. The nave is flanked by an arcade of fluted columns with Corinthian capitals that go all the way down to the altar and demarcate the nave and center aisle from the side aisles.
The cathedra or chair inside the Cathedral of St. Joseph represents Bishop Coyne's authority as the Apostle of Burlington.
I grew up in a city just outside of Boston, the city of Woburn. I was one of 7 children. My mother and father were both devout Catholics. And my mother was a stay-at-home mom. She had the job of raising all the children, but Dad was a mailman, and he did that job until he could retire at age 65 and lived to be 90. And had a wonderful retirement. I shared bedrooms with my brothers, 1 bathroom, so you learn to share. You learn to live with hand-me-downs in terms of clothing. But by the time I was 11, I was bigger than all my brothers, so hand-me-downs didn't last very long for me. It was a very loving family. My parents were just wonderful. Went to public schools all the way through, and then public college, UMass Lowell. But I was very much a part. I was very much involved in the parish, as was everyone in my family. And even through college, I was still teaching religious ed as a volunteer and lecturing at my home parish. I was very friendly with a number of priests who were very important in moving me towards the decision at the right time to enter the seminary. So after I got out of college, I worked for a couple of years, and then I went and made application to seminary, and they accepted me. I liked seminary formation. I thrived in it. It wasn't until I got in the seminary that I really found something that caught my attention, that caught my stride. I had a couple of faculty advisors who were incredibly helpful in terms of pushing me. I started to develop a real love for learning, and I was more of a person that you'd find in the afternoon in the library than at the gym or something like that. Seminary formation is not about the moment of ordination. It's about the process in which you kind of grow in the priesthood to the point where you are ordained, but it's not like an aha moment at that point. It's a conclusion of one part of formation and entering into a different type of formation, which is priestly life, because you're still learning. To me, it wasn't a momentous occasion in the sense that I felt that it was earth-shattering or mind-altering, because formation had already gotten to the place where it could have happened on that Saturday, it could happen 2 days later. I think it was just a culmination of a whole wonderful process of priestly formation. I was ordained a priest in 1986 and was assigned to St. Mary of the Hills in Milton, Massachusetts. I was just serving in the parish, and my 3 years were just about up, which in Boston at that time meant it was time for a new assignment. And then I got the call from the rector of the seminary saying the cardinal would like you to go away and study. And you have to do a propedeutic year of 16 months of languages, and then you'll go over to Rome and hopefully get your doctorate in sacred liturgy. I mean, the length and breadth of the church's liturgy, both in the Eastern rites and in the Western rites, the Latin rites, were part of the curriculum. It was a core curriculum that you just had to participate in. And working with original documents, manuscripts. I mean, I remember going into the Vatican Library with my class, and they're pulling out this folio from the 4th century. And I'm looking at it saying, boy, this is a great reproduction of it. And they said, it's not a reproduction, it's the actual text. You learn about the breadth, the length and breadth of Catholic worship. I started teaching in the fall of '94. Well, the way it started was I was teaching at the seminary for years. I was both teaching at the seminary, and now I was the director of the Office for Worship for the Archdiocese of Boston. I did that, and then I was made full-time communications, public relations. I was in front of the media already, and I had also done a number of television series for Boston Catholic Television. So I did a 13-episode series, and one of which was nominated for a local Emmy. I was familiar with this kind of work, familiar with being in front of a camera. I could answer questions on the fly. When I finished as communications director for the Archdiocese in 2007, I said I wanted to go back into parish ministry, and I'd teach part-time at the seminary. So I was going into the seminary to teach the liturgy courses still, but I was made a pastor. And my first pastoral assignment was not a good one. It lasted 9 months. But then I was made pastor of St. Margaret Mary Parish in Westwood, Massachusetts, which I did for over 5 years. It was the happiest time of my priesthood to be the pastor there. And I grew the parish, started out with 3 masses on the weekend. By the time I was done, we had 4. They were all full. I had to expand the parking lot, brought in all kinds of staff, just kind of helped what was a sleepy little parish all of a sudden became a very big and vibrant and large parish.
In January 2011, Pope Benedict XVI named Coyne an auxiliary bishop for the Archdiocese of Indianapolis. A few years later, on December 22, 2014, Pope Francis named Coyne Bishop of the Diocese of Burlington in Vermont.
At the installation mass, while I had a sense of the rite, once you're in the middle of it and everything's happening around you, and it's just a very mystical moment in the rite, in all kinds of different places. Again, laying on the ground again, but then having the gospel book held over your head and prayed over for the prayer of ordination, and then having your head anointed with oil, and then the giving of the placing of the ring, all those things. It was a very beautiful moment. Most of my family was able to come out for the ordination. I served 4.5 years as auxiliary bishop of Indianapolis, administrator for 17 months, while in between Archbishop Beekline and Archbishop Tobin, now Cardinal Tobin. And I left there having had an opportunity to learn a lot about being a bishop, to come to the Diocese of Burlington and come back to New England. So it was a Sunday afternoon, and it was 1:13 in the afternoon. I was just about to watch the Patriots play. Then the phone rang, and it was Archbishop Vigano. He said, the Holy Father would like you to go to Vermont. I didn't even have to think about it. I said yes. I want to say that in the 4.5 years I've been here, because of the goodwill of the people that are here, and because of the leadership of the priests and the religious and others that are here working with me, and also some of my own leadership in this matter, and kind of moving the needle towards missionary work and towards rethinking what we do and who we are. I sense a really positive spirit within the Diocese of Burlington. I see the Holy Spirit at work in the fact that there have been a number of things that have started by lay initiative, in which they've come to me and said, we want to do this. Can we have your blessing? And I say, no, you not only have my blessing, you have my support. So we have a Catholic business professional group. We have a number of men and women in the medical profession have come together to start a guild, a CMA, a Catholic Medical Association Guild. This is their initiative, and they've done this, and the numbers are, the last meeting of the business group, Catholic business group, was 80 people came together. The first meeting that they had of the CMA, we had 40 people in my house for that first meeting, and they're really filled with fire. So I think what I'm seeing is that, yes, while we're struggling with numbers, and while we're seeing the old paradigm of parishes as kind of like the only way in which we kind of understood ourselves to be, I'm seeing the Spirit working in new ways and rethinking how we are church within the Diocese of Burlington. I see myself first and foremost as the missionary. I'm a missionary now. I'm a missionary. I keep telling the priests we're no longer an established church. We're a missionary church. We have to go out and convert souls, convert hearts. We can't stay in our churches. We have to be out in the middle of things. We have to be with people. We have to be willing to take chances. I know that you can't be part-time. You have to be fully in the water and all wet. You can't be just a little wet when it comes to the zeal for the mission.